A disgusting, ugly, lonely salaryman gets killed on the day of his promotion only to be reincarnated into another world as a healer. Unlike your average ice guy, healers are very rare in this world and also very corrupt. Now, Lucille sets out on a journey to change the world with opus healing and fighting abilities and create a big harem in the process. An average Matrix-programmed salaryman goes from client to client in hopes of getting a promotion at his job. In the evening, he finally manages to close a client and secure his promotion. However, his excitement doesn't last for long, as a street burglar accidentally shoots him in the heart. Well, at least he got the promotion before dying. In that moment, the man's will to survive convinces the god of reincarnation to intervene and give him another life in a magical world. The god reincarnates him in a 15-year-old boy along with basic information about the world. Before heading out in the city, he picks his new name Lucille with the job title of a healer. In addition to this, he picks assess magic, martial arts, magic control, and monster luck. Naturally, Lucille thinks that being a supportive character is better than dying at an early age. Ultimately, Lucille walks in a random direction only to find himself at the entrance of a great city, protected by a giant fortress. He notices that the travelers show their identification and pay a huge toll to enter the city. At this point, Lucille puts his Wolf of Wall Street closing skills to good use and smoothly talks with the guards by revealing his job title. Immediately, the guard respectfully informs him that healers don't pay toll money. Moments later, the commander of the Valkyrie Knights arrives on the scene and escorts him into the city. Upon entering the city, Lucille bumps into an adventurer named Bazin, which makes him shit his pants on the spot. Strangely enough, Bazin advises him to avoid becoming a corrupt healer or else Lucille's balls would be shoved down his throat. Afterward, at the Healers Guild, Lucille completes all the things that are compulsory for your average typical Ice Guy MC, like filling up a form and injecting his mana into a magical item to prove his identity. Before parting ways, Lumina explains that there are 3 routes for Lucille to improve his skills. The first and most brutal one is called the Spartan training method. As the name implies, it requires the person to cast spells until they deplete their magic power. The other 2 just feel like a bunch of student loan options for brookie Matrix program twinks. Lucille excitingly chooses the first one, as it is like meeting his quota on the job. Yet, his decision shook the girls, as they never thought someone would be dumb enough to pick the first option. From that day onward, Lucille begins grinding his healing skills and magic control, allowing him to boost his stats exponentially in a matter of days. He eats, sleeps, and repeats this process until casting the level 1 healing spell becomes child's play. Eventually, he steps out of the healer's guide to employ his skills and assist adventurers at their guild. Coincidentally, a team of novice adventurers return from a dangerous quest covered in wounds. Bazin mentions that the clinic would charge them an arm and a leg for healing them. Lucille recalls that Monica informed him about the healers who have monopolized the clinics to earn a buttload of money by exploiting the poor. He vows to become an ethical healer and heal without exploiting the adventurers or the poor locals. Adhering to his oath, Lucille offers assistance to the adventurers for 0 compensation, filling them with hope. However, the pressure of saving a life and his inexperience with casting magic on a living being causes him to fail multiple times. It takes Lucille the entire afternoon to heal almost everyone in the party. Unfortunately, his magic power depleted before healing the last person, causing him to collapse on the ground. Upon waking up, Lucille is blamed for being incompetent to save a person's life. Still, this little experience motivates him to work harder and increase his magic recovery skills. He registers himself as an adventurer with the help of a real-life bunny girl named Nanela. Despite his fanboy moment, Lucille stays calm and offers his healing services to the guild in exchange for martial arts training. According to him, a healer should be able to defend himself from any threat and avoid being dead weight to the party. The sheer determination in his eyes convinces the chief martial arts instructor of the guild Broad to return him as their special training hall healer. Over the next 6 days, Lucille continues learning about holy magic from the guild lady Monica herself. She reveals that healers who reach level 5 at 20 years of age are considered talented. For extra motivation, she promises to date him once the predetermined goal is achieved. Just like that, his 10 days at the Healers Guild ends and a new chapter at the Adventurers Guild begins. There, Broad enters the private training hall with his best poker face to make him shit his pants. However, Lucille remains unfazed because of his experiences with such twink characters during his previous life. At the start of the training session, Broad evaluates his physical capability by making him run around the hall. Unexpectedly, Lucille enjoys the torture of his body since a little work is better than being dead. After being exchanged, Broad tells him to land a single attack anywhere on his body. Despite having taken martial arts back in his first life, Lucille's inexperience in a real battle is clear as day. Ultimately, Broad makes it evident that a healer like him will be a burden to his party. At the end of the training session, he makes him take a solemn oath that Lucille will heal any injured person without discrimination. At that moment, a worthless party of adventurers returns injured from a fight with a wolf. They are biased about a healer employing his skills without any compensation. This allows him to back up his oath and make a clean reputation for himself. Later in the evening, Broad advises him to use healing magic till his magic reserves are depleted. This will enhance his magic recovery skills and physical endurance, which is crucial for the real training. Surprisingly, he also offers him a room with 3 meals a day for free in exchange for his healing services. He thinks the world would be better if more healers were like Lucille. Despite the generous offer, Lucille cautiously signs up for a 1-month trial before making regrettable decisions. He begins his first day of the month by taking a cold shower and wearing a fresh pair of clothes. Naturally, the clothes in which he was reincarnated stink like someone's grandpa peed on them. Still, Nanela offers to wash his clothes along with the rest of the guild's laundry. Lucille initially refuses to take her up on the kind offer, making her feel that beastmen aren't supposed to touch his clothes. He instantly clears the misunderstanding, claiming that a beautiful girl like her shouldn't touch his clothes. Ultimately, she snatches the clothes from his hand with a jaw-dropping smile. As an important part of his training, Broad tells him to eat a gigantic meal like it is the Rock's cheat day. Afterward, he escorts him to his room in the basement and tells him to rest for the following day. Upon viewing the time, Lucille resumes the Spartan training methods by stretching his muscles and practicing magic. The following morning, Gulgar, the guild chef, serves him a drink known as Substance X. He reveals that it is a cheat item that can improve the growth rate of his overall ability. In that moment, Lucille proves his determination by chugging the drink in one go, shocking Gulgar and Broad to their cores. After a week of training, Broad continues bullying him to the extreme, but Lucille stands up each time with more determination. In the middle of their session, a cat woman walks into the hall looking for Lucille's help. Unexpectedly, she begins crying on the spot, which confuses the hell out of him. In the meantime, the other adventurers can't believe that a healer would treat their wounds for free. Over the next few days, Lucille notices that various adventurers keep a close eye on him throughout the guild. He confronts Broad and Gulgar only to discover that the adventurers are worried about him running off. All the adventurers come from a difficult background to earn money for their families. Furthermore, the major injuries they receive on a quest lead them to take out a loan for their medical expenses. This cycle repeats itself until the adventurer goes into slavery or loses their life. After hearing their concerns, Lucille promises to fulfill his duties for 1 month, as stated in their contract. Until then, he asks Broad to refrain from invading his privacy, otherwise the adventurers will be forced to drink Substance X. After making that power move, Lucille spends the rest of his days focused on training and healing more people. On his last day, Broad sits down with him for a man-to-man talk about his future. Naturally, Lucille mentions that returning to the Healers Guild will be more suitable for his pockets. He also needs to pay a monthly offering of 1 silver coin at the guild, or else his membership would be cancelled. Right after, Broad gives him a bag with 12 silver coins to pay off his offerings to the Healers Guild for an entire year. In exchange, he wants him to continue his training under him and provide healing services to the adventurers. He quickly makes the transaction and returns to the Adventurers Guild, allowing them to take a sigh of relief. To celebrate his return, Broad gives him a spell tome with various basic level holy spells for Lucille to learn new healing abilities. After a month of constant training, Broad grants Lucille a day off from his daily torture in the training hall. Instead, he tells him to assist their guild butcher in dealing with various monsters. He knocks on the door only to discover that the butcher is Gulgar's slimmer version and older brother Galba. He removes a giant boar from a magical bag and precisely butchers it like a Gordon Ramsay. Unexpectedly, the guild sells the extra meat to the outsiders to cover their operation costs. Furthermore, he tells Lucille that Broad wants him to learn about the autonomy of various monsters in their kitchen. This knowledge will help in his fight on the battlefield against such monsters. After organizing the meat, Galba pulls a small white rabbit out of the bag and tells him to butcher it. Despite the monster being dead, Lucille's hand can't help but shake from the fear of slicing a living organism. Still, he follows Galba's step-by-step guide to pull through and finish the task, as adventurers must learn about food. After days without training, he walks through the hallways, wondering if Brod is busy with other matters. Out of nowhere, Nanela, Melina, and Murnell ambush him from all directions to teach him a three-way lesson. The three girls take him to the library to offer their assistance in various subjects. With a brief thought, Lucille chooses to learn about the anatomy of monsters and their materials from Nanela. Over the next 6 months, Lucille sticks to a strict routine that includes training with Brod, healing wounds, studying sessions, and doing random errands for Galba. Lucille excitedly announces that the Legion of the White Wolf earned the most amount of gold. Melina and Murnell mention that white wolves are nearly a class adventures. They also notice that Lucille might just pop out of his shirt. Eventually, Nanela shows him around town and takes him on a shopping spree in the buzzing local markets. On their way back, Lucille overhears Monica's scream from a distance. He follows the sound only to find her in a dark alleyway, covered in blood. They take her back to the Adventurers Guild to help her recover. Upon waking up, Lucille informs that someone attempted to assassinate her by using a powerful poison. At that moment, Monica reveals that one of her friends was charged an unreasonable amount for basic treatment at the clinic. Despite slavery being illegal in their country, her friend was sold to a merchant for being unable to clear their dues. Naturally, she openly voiced her opinions against the clinic, which nearly got her killed. Ultimately, Monica's attacker is apprehended by the authorities, but no connection between the criminal and the clinic is discovered. She begins working at the Adventurers Guild to ensure her safety. As things seem to become normal, Brod arrives looking for Lucille only to reveal that various adventurer parties, including the Legion of the White Wolf. They quickly run to the emergency ward where Lucille constantly casts the spell Heal and Cure on the adventurers. Despite deleting his magic reserves, Lucille only manages to save the White Wolves and a handful of other adventures. As the year agreement comes to an end, Lucille decides to leave the Adventurers Guild to earn some money as a healer and buy more advanced spell tones. At the Healers Guild, Lucille finds Curator dozing off in the middle of the day with no sense of surroundings. He tells her to quit jacking off to hub videos and help him evaluate his abilities. After reviewing his abilities, Curator goes bonkers as a normal healer wouldn't be able to advance 5 levels in 1 year. She promotes him from rank H to rank C, allowing him to purchase new spell tones like Middle Heal and Area Heal. However, Lucille would be required to pay 90 silver coins instead of 12, as rank C healers earn a shit ton of dough. Out of nowhere, Brod slams a bag containing silver coins worth 1 gold coin to transfer Lucille back to the Adventurers Guild. He also agrees to give him a decent wage, helping Lucille to make the no-brainer decision. Curator tries to inform him that various clinics will pay him a lot more than the Adventurers Guild. However, Lucille prioritizes staying together with 2 hot co-workers and smoking beast women with big talents. Naturally, the guild celebrates his return and employment with the guild by throwing him a little party. As per tradition, Golger fixes him a jug of Substance X for him to raise a toast and begin the party. Despite staying with him for a year, the adventurers still can't accept that Lucille can chug down Substance X like it is Nanela's rabbit milk. On the other hand, the most influential healer in their city, Bodakuri, learns that his business has been slow due to some nutcase healing people for free. He abruptly comes to the Adventurers Hall and confronts Lucille for his naivety. He orders him to quit the Adventurers Guild and work in his clinic. Without a single thought, Lucille tells him to fudge off, as his clinic sells people into slavery to recover his money. Still, he thinks that there might be some good left in the overly corrupt Fatso. However, Bodakuri crosses all lines by ordering his men to kill Lucille. Thankfully, Brod arrives on the scene to make the Fatso shit in his pants and run away. After that encounter with Bodakuri, Brod warns Lucille that various shitheads might attack him to gain favor with the strongest healer in their city. He decides to train him like a new gladiator, meaning his training, meals, and Substance X will be doubled. In the training hall, Lucille casts a barrier on himself, thinking the pain from his attacks will decrease. However, Brod increases his power and beats the hell out of him. Still, he stands back up with a smile, earning him the nickname the Masochist Zombie Healer. Eventually, Lucille follows a rigorous routine, as he begins training with various weapons and learning magic on specific days. Over at the Adventurers Guild, Golger and Brod parse Lucille for eating like the Rock and gaining muscle, unlike any healer. Moments later, Nanela comes to the cafe and delivers a letter from the Holy Church. Unexpectedly, Bodakuri contacted the headquarters and arranged a transfer to the capital city. Still, he can complete his contract at the Adventurers Guild before transferring jobs. Until then, Brod tells him to heal as many patients as possible without discrimination. Naturally, he runs out of magic power after several patients. However, the cat women reveal that there are still patients outside waiting for their appointments. Suddenly, Golgar barges into his room with a jug of Substance X since it helps in magic recovery. Later in the evening, Broad comes out clean, revealing that the effects of Substance X are still unknown to them. According to legends, it says that Substance X can improve a person's growth speed, but nothing is set in stone. Sometime later, Galba chimes into the conversation, informing them that his negotiations with the Holy Church went smoothly. Now, Lucille will not be targeted by any corrupt healer. Furthermore, he informs them about his plan to assassinate the current head of the Healers Guild, as he is a corrupt douchebag. After that, 6 months flow by in a flash and Lucille's time at the Adventure Guild finally ends. Before leaving, he informs Broad about his official promotion to an A-rank healer and asks him for an odd favor. The two of them visit the adventurer's graveyard where Lucille pays his respects to the souls that died because of him. He tells Broad to start a crash course for newcomers to ensure they won't be reckless on the battlefield. After a lot of pushing, Broad eventually agrees to create a course for the newcomers which will help them learn all the basics of combat, butchering, herbs, and magic. On that note, he yells at the eavesdroppers, making them feel embarrassed. Immediately, Lucille bows his head to show his gratitude for their help. However, they also feel the same, as Lucille has done a lot for them in their guilds. At that moment, he mentions that Nanela lent him a hand at his lower point and assisted him in everything. Meanwhile, Monica has been his guardian angel, giving him hope to continue his training at the guild with determination. As their conversation ends, he promises to share a meal with them again. The following morning, the Legion of Wolves safely escorted Lucille to the Holy City under the guidance of the Adventurers Guild. Before parting ways, Lucille proposes a visit to the Town Adventurers Guild to stock up on Substance X. He asks for Bazin's assistance, as the new faces might bully him. Unexpectedly, Bazin proves himself to be a big shot by walking in straight to the guild's master's office. Unbeknownst to Lucille, Master Granz knows that Lucille is Broad's favorite student. However, he is shocked when Lucille orders 3 barrels of Substance X on the go. Naturally, Granz tells him to drink a glass of Substance X in front of everyone to prove that he won't die. Afterward, Granz hopes that Lucille will heal their adventurers in exchange for fair compensation. Lucille skillfully states that the Adventurers Guild gained his favor by helping him out in times of need. Afterward, the Legion of the White Wolf finishes their quest and brings Lucille to the headquarters of the Healers Guild. There, he notices that even the receptionists are wary of the other guilds in the area. A few seconds later, one of the priests and the person looking over his transfer Grandheart takes him inside the secret headquarters. Unexpectedly, he encounters Lumina on the entrance door and she invites him to her private quarters for a discussion. Eventually, Grandheart takes him to a shady-looking white room to conduct his interview before handing out the promotion. He gets straight down to business and asks about Lucille's thoughts on Bodakuri's accusation. Without any hesitation, Lucille clarifies the situation, revealing that corrupt healers like Bodakuri are ruining the Healers Guild reputation. Grandheart gives him the promotion, issuing him the role of exorcist. Lucille is shocked to hear this, but his salary of 20 gold coins forces him to accept without question. In the afternoon, he meets with Lumina only to learn that the Holy Church was built on a graveyard that transformed into a giant labyrinth. Unexpectedly, Lucille must explore the labyrinth and exorcise undead creatures like zombies, skeletons, and ghosts. She also reveals that the labyrinth stinks like hell, and the worst part is that it sticks to your clothes. However, Lucille isn't really worried about the stench of the place thanks to Substance X. The coming morning, Grandheart introduces him to his senior George, who will teach him the ins and outs of the labyrinth. On that note, Grandheart gives him a magical white robe that costs 10 platinum coins to protect him from danger. Ultimately, George takes him inside the labyrinth to tell him about his job. Lucille creatively casts a purification spell on his sword to avoid wasting magic points on weak creatures like zombies. On his first day, he goes into the 3rd floor and defeats a bunch of undead skeletons. After a long day of work, Lucille exits the labyrinth only to find curious George waiting for him. He assumed that Lucille might have been a zombie snack by now. With that said, he takes Lucille to an item shop built inside the headquarters to help exorcists exchange magic stones for points. The owner of the shop, Catalia, is shocked to discover that Lucille earned more than 4,000 points on his first day. Still, he can't purchase exclusive spell tones from the shop, as it costs 1 million points. However, the price of weapons is reasonable at the store because healers don't use weapons. Furthermore, Catalia reveals that healers can't cast spells while wielding weapons. Immediately, Lucille gets excited to know that his abilities are out of the ordinary. He buys a sword and spear made from holy silver which is perfect against the undead. On his way back, Reinhardt tells him to report his progress on the first day. Naturally, Lucille is experienced in dealing with such bosses and so the process goes smoothly. He also gives a new robe to wear off duty inside the headquarters. Despite giving him a long lecture, Lucille realizes that Reinhardt is a sweetheart underneath. From that day onward, he continues exploring the labyrinth and killing monsters. He thinks that the labyrinth is an illusion for newcomers to train. After getting the hang of the upper floors, Lucille overconfident ventures into the deep only to find himself in a trap. Still, he keeps the confidence and ventures deeper into the abyss. Eventually, he comes across a giant door which resembles a boss room. Instantly, Lucille decides to leave the boss room for another day and collect more information. He asks Curious George about the room only to learn that he never entered it once. The following morning, Lucille entered the boss room fully prepared to face the worst-case scenario. As expected, he is surrounded by zombies and fireball-throwing ghosts. Instinctively, he begins chanting the purifying spell, knowing that his cheat spell will purify all the undead in the area. However, soon he finds out that magic is blocked in the boss room, causing him to run back in fear. One of the zombies strikes his face, revealing that the labyrinth isn't an illusion. With no choice left, he channels the purifying spell into his blade and kills all the monsters. After defeating all the monsters, Lucille begins collecting the magic stones in the area. At that moment, a sudden attack hits him out of nowhere and injures his leg. Upon seeing the white-robed undead, he realizes that the mob of monsters before wasn't the boss. Firstly, he throws a sword at him to see if it confirms that the white-robed skeleton is afraid of the holy silver. After confirming his suspicion, Lucille crafts the perfect strategy to kill the monster without any complications. Unlike the small fry from before, the white-robed skeleton leaves its wand and robe. Ultimately, he returns to Catalia's shop and begins boasting about his adventures in the labyrinth. She then evaluates the magic stones only to reveal that they are worth more than 100,000 points. Strangely enough, Catalia tells him to follow her to the Pope chambers with the unique drop items. The Pope reveals that the magic items belong to someone who vanished in the labyrinth 12 years ago. She wishes to buy the items from him in exchange for a magical sack that has unlimited storage. At the start of the day, Lucille lists his mistakes in the previous battle with the white-robed skeleton king. Naturally, he thinks that both Broad and Gulger would punish him to hell if his mistakes were shown to them. He thinks of joining the paladins for more training exercises. On the way to the cafeteria, Lucille coincidentally encounters Lumina with her two subordinates Quina and Lucy. They praise him for his achievement in 10 days and invite him for breakfast. At the table, he goes over the whole story of his unintentional encounter with the boss, which earns him a bunch of insults from the girls. Ideally, he would like to train with Broad at the guild and return much stronger. However, Lumina clarifies that transferring without proper paperwork. Instead, she invites him to train with the paladins every morning. On that note, Lucille ventures into the labyrinth to explore the 11th and 12th floor, as they house weak undeads. Afterward, he visits the shop to ask to exchange his points and retrieve the magic sack. Unexpectedly, the Pope generously filled the bag with various exclusive spell tones as a bonus. The following morning, Lucille introduces himself of the Valkyries to join their training session. They warm up with a light jog which makes him feel confident since Broad made him run for 2 years straight. However, his confidence is shattered into pieces as the Valkyries leave him behind without much effort. After the warm-up, Lucille fights with Lumina only to get beaten to a bloody pulp. Upon waking up, he notices that Lucy and Quina have been keeping an eye on him. They can't believe that Lumina would knock him unconscious to show respect to a mere healer. At their next training session, Lumina divides them into 2 teams where one plays the role of the attacker and the other defends. Despite their difference in experience, Lucille's team wins the match due to his incredible magic ability. Lumina chimes in, saying that he is a complete oddball. She even knows that the adventures used to call him the masochist zombie healer at the guild. In the afternoon, he continues exploring the labyrinth, reaching the 16th floor without any problems. After 2 days of consecutive exploration, Lucille comes across the main chambers on the 20th floor. However, this time around, he decides to do a little research before going in. Yet, not even Catalia knows about the contents of the main chambers since they haven't been explored. The following morning, one of Lumina's grumpy subordinates invites him for a special dual-wielding practice. After carefully observing the style, Lucille concludes that it will be difficult to master. He tries to fight the dual-wielding Valkyries but gets beaten to a pulp each time. Ultimately, he ventures back into the labyrinth to defeat the main boss on the 20th floor and retrieve the item. The Pope buys the items once again, which belong to one of the high priests of the temple. In exchange, she promises to give him a full set of anti-undead armor to continue his progression. On his day off, Lucille visits the Adventurers Guild, leading the adventurers to view him as a threat. Still, he ignores everyone and orders 10 barrels of Substance X, which shocks the hell out of Granz and everyone else. After delivering the product, Granz pleads for him to become a resident at the guild like back in the other city. However, Lucille clarifies the situation, revealing that the headquarters will not allow him to remain at the Adventurers Guild. Still, he will be happy to help them on his free days. Simultaneously, Milty reveals that their adventurers fight against high-level monsters, leading to life-threatening injuries. Lucille usually suggests that they should visit the local clinic, which unintentionally angers Milty. Moments later, he tells Granz that his services cost 1 silver coin, making Milty tear up. The moment he steps into the emergency area, the adventurers begin cursing and threatening the cold-heated healers. Eventually, Granz reveals that Lucille is the legendary masochist zombie healer and his services cost 1 silver coin. Before healing them, Lucille tells them to help any church member in trouble and quit the bad nickname. Right after, he casts Area High Heal to save everyone from the brink of death. Afterward, the adventurers gather to pick a new nickname for Lucille, and all they can come up with is Saint Weirdo. Over the next week, he tells Catalia that spending conductive days in the dungeon improves his efficiency. Before he returns, she gives him the armor and weapons he requested from the Pope. After a few days, he returns to the Adventurers Guild for more Substance X and healing services. Surprisingly, all the adventurers in the guild have developed a good friendly relationship with him in a short amount of time. After casting a combination of spells, Lucille asks about the adventures of Broad and the others, only to find out that 2 receptionists are getting married. He instantly thinks that Nanela and Monica might be marrying someone rich. However, none of the adventurers know about the names of the girls. 6 months into the job, Lucille manages to defeat the boss on the 30th floor with ease. He returns to the church to share a brief report with Catalia. As their conversation continues, she discovers that he's been using a performance-enhancing drug known as Substance X. The Pope reveals that a sage created that drug from the dragon's heart. However, further down the line, it becomes an undrinkable liquid known as God Lament. Nonetheless, both the Pope and Catalia praise his determination and courage to drink something like that. At the end, he returns the items retrieved from the main chamber and takes his leave. The following day, Catalia gives a slit in which the Pope wrote about the effects of Substance X. He reads the note in the dungeon only to learn that his Excalibur won't function properly. 1 month after finding out the truth about Substance X, Lucille successfully reaches the main chambers on the 4th floor. However, his guts tell him that something bad is behind those doors, leading him to chicken out. On his day off, he goes to the guild and meets with a beast girl at the entrance gates. He takes her inside the building, otherwise people might think of him as a creep. Unexpectedly, he encounters Nanela and Monica, who are here to visit him for 3 days. However, the guild members carry him straight to the training hall for his healing services. After a while, Milty communicates with the young girl and tells Lucille to accompany her immediately. Together with the girls and Granz, he goes into the slums area where refugees from another country lie injured. One of the beastmen suddenly stabs him in the abdomen out of fear for his daughter. Unlike in his first life, Lucille takes out the knife and casts an Area High Heal spell to save everyone. Soon the local residents in the area come begging for his help to heal the residents. After healing everyone, he purifies their source of water, which was the cause of their disease, and teaches them a bit about hygiene. Later that day, the 2 girls reveal that they have been writing to him ever since he left the city. However, Lucille says that none of their letters have reached him. They realize that the drunken dwarf never sent his letters in the first place. He makes up for this mistake by throwing a party for the girls. Just like that, 3 comes to an end and both the girls travel back to their original city. A few days later, the beastmen who stabbed him bow down and apologize in shame. Despite Lucille forgiving him 1,000 times, he refuses to budge and says that his life is in Lucille's hands. Eventually, he manages to convince him that his debt is paid. He also heals the damaged vocal cords of the little child, allowing her to speak a little. Before going back into the dungeon, Lucille spars with Lumina to gain more confidence in his ability. Ultimately, he goes into the main chambers of the 40th floor only to find a dual-wielding undead knight. After days of trying, he finds its weak spot and lands the finishing blow to its head. However, for some reason, the door to the exit door stays shut even after trying to open it 1,000 times. This forces him to continue exploring and venturing deep into the dungeon. 6 months have passed since Lucille last stepped out of the labyrinth. The adventurers at the guild think the church is holding him inside to raise their profits. Meanwhile, Lucille reaches the main chamber on the 5th floor, but before going in he learns an advanced spell from the exclusive spell tomes. Inside the room, he finds a giant ghost monster with speed and strength greater than him. After exchanging a few attacks, Lucille notices that magic attacks are its weakness. However, his magic power starts to deplete with just a few attacks. At that moment, he utilizes the strength of the new spell known as Sanctuary Circle. With the help of the magic potions, he maintains the spell for the right amount of time to defeat the monster. On the brink of death, Lucille sees a human face who's desperately trying to tell him something. It dawns on him that every boss monster he defeated so far was a human with dreams and families. Unlike the other boss monster, the ghost drops a spell tome known as Forbidden Holy Magic. A few moments later, a giant magical door appeared right in front of him, which piqued his curiosity. Surprisingly, the magic door transports him into a secret room of a dungeon in which a dragon is trapped. After thinking a while, Lucille decides to cast Sanctuary's Circle to purify the undead dragon in one move. Just as planned, his move succeeds, but the dragon comes back to life instead of dying. He reveals himself to be an ally and shares a story of the legends regarding mysterious beings. As it turns out, the labyrinth is formed in a place where a dragon god is sealed away. Before exhausting the last of his life, the dragon grants him his protection, which can help him sense the presence of other dragons in the labyrinth. Sometime later, a magical staff appears out of nowhere and takes him back to the surface. Firstly, he visits the shop to tell Catalia to exchange his magic stones for points. Unexpectedly, she attacks him out of the blue, thinking that he's an undead. Apparently, for the past 6 months everyone thought that Lucille died in the dungeon. Meanwhile, outside, the adventurers thought that the Holy Church held him in quarantine to raise their profits. He instantly goes outside to find Broad, Gulger, Galba and Granz waiting for his return. Furthermore, all the locals are protesting in front of the church for his safety. After spending some quality time with the folks, Lucille bids them farewell and returns to the more pressing matter at hand. He demands a private audience with the Pope, Lumina and Catalia to reveal all the insider information about the dragon and its brethren. After 1 week, the Pope promotes him to an S rank and grants him the same benefits as a bishop. Healing for money is a thing that happens in real life as well. So I would love to know your thoughts on the matter. Watch this next video. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon for more recaps. And let me know what you think about this anime on the comments. Till the next my recap followers.